Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is Discerning What is True. Today is the 5th day of February 2026. Going to be talking about another chapter here of Kabbalah and Exodus. This will be chapter 31. This is simply entitled From Heaven to Earth by Zed ben Shimon Halevi. He wrote many books in the past, and you can look those up on Wikipedia. One of them is Kabbalah and Exodus. The idea when we talk about this particular book is to deal with what we call the Exodus from Egypt. Egypt itself represents the physical world, and what they're seeking, that is, the Israelis, or not Israelis, but the Jews, Jews are seeking to exit that particular mindset, you see, and to find the spirit within themselves, you see. You see, we are all spirits here. We, in fact, that's what's the eternal about us. It's not the humanity part of ourselves. It's not our bodies or anything of that nature, because that's what dies. But the spirit continues on. So this is been reading this particular book for probably over a month now. This is chapter 31, but it's actually From Heaven to Earth is the title, but it's from Exodus chapter 27 of the Bible. So let's look into it, okay? Thank you for being here. Before the court of the tabernacle was specified in Exodus, the design of the altar is set out. This is to be made of shittim wood, but covered with bronze. The use of this less precious alloy of tin and copper not only denotes the lower worlds, but the penetration of the upper physical world and the lower world of a formation. Bronze is used throughout the court, even down to the pegs that hold up the outer posts. The altar itself also contains the principle of the four worlds in its four cornered horns. Below, inside, and midway from the base, the altar has a grating, Grating. This position is not just a practical level for the burning process, but a very precise statement about the junction between worlds. For it is here that the five transubstantiations, the offering from a physical solid into a liquid fat, then a vaporous smoke that ascends up to the divine. The method of sacrifice may seem primitive to modern man, but we must accept it as the outer custom of that time and perceive the inner meaning. The giving of the best produce for sacrifice was to transform it from the profane into the sacred, so that whatever was sacrificed was as much to its own benefit as well as the sacrificer being. The alternate was for the animal to be killed for the dinner table. In the initiative instructions to Moses on the mountain, there is no mention of the great water laver, Laber, nor is there any mention of the altar of incense before the curtain of the ark in the sanctuary of the tabernacle. These verses are considered by some scholars to have been added after the Babylonian exile. Their purpose is the purification of the priests and the raising of the level of the celebrants, Celebrants, conscious state by the use of incense. Tradition has it that the laver for a oblum was made out of the metal mirrors of the women who ministered at the doors of the tent of meeting. Symbolically, this idea represents the dissolving of the ego's vanity clearly and its transformation into an instrument for attaining purity. And this is exact role of the Sephirah Yusat in the psychological world of formation. The outer walls of the court repeat the proportions of the tabernacle, but on a larger scale. The placing of the tabernacle in the western section also represents, or I should say, repeats the idea of the lowest part of the world being set within a larger area. Now remember, we can go a little bit back in history here. Everything is, the West is speaking of what we call the setting. The East is considered the most prominent part. We know that simply is when, that's when each day begins with the sun rising from the east. So that means that light is coming in other words, which is to do with spirituality. We also know simply is when we are told about the story of Jesus and his birth, the Magi's came from the east, you see. So that gives you an indication that wisdom comes from the east also. So let's see where I was at here. Beyond the fence of the court lies the lowest part of the natural world, which is subdivided into Levites and Israelites and all other nations under animal, vegetable, and mineral law. Thus, the scheme of the worlds is complete. The details of the outer wall clearly indicate the lower worlds. To begin with, the metals used are silver and bronze. So they're not even speaking of gold here, as it was the chapters before. These represents formation and action. So there's a reason why these are colored. The different metals are different here compared to gold, because gold is the highest precious metal out there. The fabric hung between the bronze posts, its plain linen, is only at the eastern end, where the gateway to the court stands. Again, giving you interest, showing you again the east is the primary deal. In fact, for example, just popped in my head here, Easter. So Easter itself has east within it, you see, meaning from the east. It is only at the eastern end where the gateway to the court stands that panels of the four colors are used. Here, 5 posts hold up 4 panels, and so we get a repetition of the 4 levels and non-sephiral, the 10th always being considered out of vision in the levels above. The dimensions of 100 cubits and 50 cubits may well symbolize the lower world's interpenetrating half of its superior. Of all this we cannot be sure, however, because the original text is undoubtedly incomplete and has certainly been modified. To illustrate the point, the last 2 verses of this chapter roughly switch from the grand design to a minute sidetrack concerned with the ingredients for making lamp oil. This formula is probably priestcraft rather than an example of knowledge about the inner and upper worlds. Drawing away from the detail and the viewing of the tabernacle in its setting at the center of the Israelite camp, we see how it will become a focal point in psychological and spiritual development of the people. Symbol of the inner and outer worlds, the tabernacle's presence will affect the tribes and influence them towards a orderly society based upon law founded in divine principles. The erection of an inter-tabernacle within the individual by Kabbalistic theory and practices creates and forms a similar center of gravity, which in course of time transforms the state of the psyche and spirit. Seen in terms of Jacob's ladder, the tabernacle articulates itself very accurately up through the various levels. At the bottom face of this physical tree, the Israelites represents the activities and values of ordinary living. The Levites above represents a higher level of life, where standards are related to the worlds above. The entrance to the court and the triad of the altar are the places where the physical translates into the form of the lower psychological tree. Laver being the spot where the quote, ego is cleansed. And then in brackets it says, the Israelites were allowed into the court or upper action, end quote. I'm sorry, bracket. The door of the self, S-E-L-F, to the tent of meeting is at the place where the three lower worlds meet. And the soul triad acts as the screen before the sanctuary, which separates the lower psyche from the face of the upper psychological and lower spiritual chambers of the sanctuary. Here, at the height of psychological understanding and wisdom, are the lamp that is standard, and the table of showbread. The triad of spiritual judgment and mercy represents the inner veil before the Holy of Holies, where the arch sits at the place of spiritual knowledge. And in brackets, it says, just above the place where the three upper worlds meet, in bracket. Here, between the cherubim, hovers Hashem, H-A-S-H-E-M, the name of Yahweh Elohim, the God of Israel. Beyond the abyss of darkness is the crown of I am. So I'm going to look at something here real quick here. Let's see if this word is in here. Not, may not be. We'll see. I don't see it. No, I don't. I was looking for that particular word in this mythology book. I said mythology, but I should have said metaphysics. Beyond the abyss of darkness is the crown of I am. The emphasis of the scriptures now shifts away from the macrocosmic view embodied in the tabernacle and concentrates on the microcosmic aspect of the teachings related to man as set out in the structure and ritual of the community. And so that is the end of this particular chapter here, which is chapter 31, which is the end of a particular section of the book. Also, the next section we'll be dealing with in this particular book is the it's called simply knowledge of man. So we're going to end here at this point. Again, today is the 5th day of February 2026. So thank you for being here. It's a very short chapter and appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.